A good amount of people here. Hello and welcome to the sixth StackRox community meeting. I am one of the StackRox chairs, Mike Foster, and I'm joined by my co-chair.
Hi, I'm Matthias. I'm one of the engineers for ACS and StackRox, and also one of the community managers, as well as also hopefully seldom used one of the COC chairs for the project.
Correct. Got a pretty quick meeting for you. We're going to talk Hacktober 3.72 release, the upcoming KubeCon events, and looking at what we would like to do with the community website. So what kind of demos that you'd like to see, what things, let's say the documentation doesn't necessarily wrap up well for the community edition. But yeah, so the meeting notes are in the chat if you need them, or in the Slack channel too, pinned at the top. Matthias, you want to talk about Hacktober and how that's going?
Yeah, sure. So Hacktoberfest, actually, we tried to add some issues to our project. So if you are in StackRox, so what the main platform repository, any issue that is tagged Hacktoberfest is not assigned to anyone is obviously open for grabs. We already have quite a lot of people that are interested. In general, all the issues that are open there are up for grabs. So if you're interested, feel free to pick anything up. But I have also just added a search query, so you can just have all of the Hacktoberfest ones at one glance, because these are specifically crafted to be easy and hopefully contained enough so that you can pick up the task, vanish for a week or two, and then come back with a PR and hopefully get that accepted, more or less, as fast as fast as possible.
Yeah, and if you do plan on working on them, assign it or get one of us to assign it to you so that there's no overlap in PRs. I hate to see duplicated work.
Yeah.
And again, if you're contributing to Oktoberfest, I'm going to reach out at the end of the month and send everybody some gear. I've already posted in the chat some of the GitHub accounts of the people who've helped out. So look forward to sending you some tumblers and sweatshirts.
Yeah, actually, I'm super happy to see that people not only are interested in the issues, but also are actively handing in pull requests. So if you're interested, stop by, pick something up. And if you're unsure about anything, please feel free to tag any of us. We're always there to help. So yeah.
And we planned on, I know we talked about 3.72 in the last month meeting, but since Boaz is here, I figured it'd be nice to ask him if you wanted to talk about 3.72, anything you want to highlight in the release. We're going to throw you to the wolves here.
Yeah, I would reciprocate and throw it back to Matthias to talk about our shift left dev preview.
Yeah, that's actually one of the features that I ended up working on together with Boaz. So we actually released something into dev preview, which means we are actively looking for feedback for that. So what we did release is we have integrated a static analysis engine for your deployments. So if you have your deployment YAMLs ready, but you would ideally need some network policies for that, which is considered a good best practice to have, why not generate them right out of your YAMLs? So you can use that today actually by using RoxStar generate netpol, which will just take the folder where your YAMLs live and then spit out a list of network policies. Why would you do that? Well, actually, the thing is that network policies are usually done by ops or DevOps teams, so quite late in the process. But usually I would argue that we as developers know our workloads best, and maybe it might be a good idea to be nice to the DevOps people and already have some network policies for them to review, as opposed to, hey, could you just generate some for me? And I just saw that Boaz helpfully linked the README. So this feature, as it is in dev preview, you need to use it a little bit differently. Basically, you need to set an environment variable to make it available. And we have a README for that. So if you're interested in that, please have a look at the README. there is a little README that is next to the generate command that will just tell you how to use it. We will also link that in the community meeting notes for anyone interested. And what that brings me to my next point, which is if you use it, please let us know how you like it. So do you like it at all? Should we do it differently? Is it something you would like to see more of? Or basically it is for us it was a great idea and a great opportunity to integrate this, but the question is, how are users using it and how would you folks like to see it evolve? So if you have any feedback for us, let us know either through an issue or an email or in Slack. Boaz, did I hopefully did a good did it justice? Do you want to add anything?
Oh, for sure. Two things to add. I'll start with just saying that Kubernetes network policies is hard. And this is a method the whole idea is to make it easy. So ultimately, you shouldn't be thinking about your network policies. You should have a system that helps you get that done. So that's the idea. The circumstances where we analyze today, like the solution is to analyze existing resources, YAMLs and stuff, and understand what you're trying to do and just do it for you. Those circumstances is where I think, to Matthias's point, we would really benefit from feedback, in the sense that, does your project look like that? In other words, where in your projects do you specify your IP connections? We expect it to see in a certain set of YAMLs. So we should do a whole talk about that, which leads me to my second point, which Mike might be wanting to talk about what he's doing in KubeCon on this.
Yeah, that was kind of up next. There's a couple points are like, there's the developer use case, which you can go and use RoxETL and generate the manifest yourself. There's also the case of your network security teams who don't even want to touch Kubernetes, that want to generate policies, and you don't need to go to the developer to actually generate these policies. I could just run it against your static files that are in your repository, generate that, maybe put it into a testing environment, do it all asynchronously so that I can come up with maybe some scalable policies in the future for your network and security teams, right? So I think one of the big things is there's the developer standpoint is shifting left, and then there's the operations and security teams that can leverage it to get developers off their back, right? So if you're a developer, that's also really useful to you. And again, I'll get into KubeCon in a second. I do want to touch on a couple things in terms of the release notes. One of my favorite aspects is the Docker file lines and images. So the introduced components, I think is awesome. Whenever you're updating an image, Docker file introduces a vulnerability. You can see exactly where it is in the new release. Scanning support for RHEL 9, I think is awesome. And I think host scanning being built into the vulnerability dashboard in the upcoming releases and part of the roadmap is extremely nice. And then the policy for CVEs with a fixable CVSS score of 6 or greater is disabled by default now. I think that's worth pointing out. As part of a larger, just general security talk, CVSS, if you've ever seen the normal distribution of scores, it's supposed to be a normal distribution. It never is. There's a weird spike that happens right after 5.9 at 6.0 for multiple reasons. And it doesn't necessarily mean there is an important or critical vulnerability that's introduced. Sometimes a 6.0 with the proper configuration in Kubernetes is a non-factor. And so we figured that having all of these policy breaks by default was not extremely useful and just created more noise. That being said, if you find any issues with it, it's worth hearing about if something sneaks through and you're like, oh, this is, maybe you, and also you can change the policies so it's like 6.1 or 6.5. There's a lot more flexibility, but 6.0 seemed like a weird line that we drew, which might not necessarily benefit the end user. So with that being said, Boaz made a great point in that KubeCon's coming up. So at the end of December, the 24th to the 28th is KubeCon and all its co-located events. So if you're following the CNCF at all, it's basically the biggest event for Kubernetes and its related projects. I'll be there. I'll be doing a keynote about MP Guard. specifically that shift left net poll feature. So if you're in Detroit and you happen to stop by, come by the booth. I'll be there for 2 days. We'll be discussing StackRox and some of the new features, and you can come pick my brain. I'll have a bunch of gear there too. So if you don't like it shipped to you, you can come and just pick it up. And yeah, and then is there anything else?
I thought I heard you say end of December. I think you meant end of October, right?
End of October, yes, correct. I'm looking forward to Christmas. Sorry, but
Yeah.
that vacation's coming up way too soon. Yes, end of October, October 24th to 28th. And the co-located event is Monday, Tuesday, and we'll be doing another demo as well on the Thursday at the Red Hat booth. And then that brings us into, there's kind of two last things that we wanted to bring up. Is I started working on a website outline, and we do get a lot of questions in the community chat, some revolving around Docker Desktop and management, some revolving around access to the different services. So by default, when you deploy StackRox, it's not accessible to external services. This is for security purposes. You don't want something with all that information being publicly accessible if you go and deploy it on GKE or something like that. It's not exactly intuitive, I think, for most Kubernetes users, because you're used to applications where by default they come with an Ingress or node port service enabled. So I think things like that are worthwhile to point out on the website, how to deploy it, what we recommend you doing for the community distributions. If there's something in particular that you've had issues with in deploying the community distributions, I'd love to hear from you so that we can go and create a demo. I also want to create an actual vulnerability demo that will help you walk through and say, hey, here are some of the ways we recommend using it as a practical point. I find sometimes the documentation is heavy. You can use my dumb brain as a board to figure out how the average user uses it, let's say. Again, we'd love to hear from you about when you first installed it. Was the dashboard a little bit overwhelming? Maybe we can fix that or give you some practical tips, and hopefully maybe get some stuff up on YouTube for you. Again, I have like certificate management and application exposure as two that I think Matthias and I have outlined that I think are worthwhile. Feel free to either comment on that or throw it in the Slack channel directly at me.
Basically, we only get one out of the box experience, right? So usually we've seen the product so much that we sometimes are a little bit blind. So it is super interesting for us to actually hear from people that are seeing the platform the first time, where they have problems, maybe reading the document or maybe missing some documentation, maybe where are help texts not actually helping. So please feel free to share any of that with us. And even nothing is too minute. It's actually everything is helping, because we want to have a consistent and easy to use experience and platform.
100%. And we've had a couple questions about a roadmap on GitHub, just moving into the next topic. Curious if there is a desire for something public, even if it's something public as like minor issues that need fixed in the upcoming releases. If there is a desire, then it's worthwhile putting the time to make sure that you have that information. If there isn't as much desire, obviously with upstream, then we'll have to adjust expectations, right? So just looking for feedback on that. If you have anything in particular that you want to see, let us know. Again, the more you contribute and chat in the channel, the more we're gonna try to help you. Yeah, anything else to add on that, Matthias?
Nope, not as far as I'm concerned.
All right, and then the RoxStar of the month goes to all the people contributing in Hacktober. Again, at the end of October, I'm gonna send you a bunch of gear. So hopefully we can keep those coffees warm in the upcoming winter months. If you're in the warm weather, I am very jealous of you. It is already getting to freezing at night up here. So fun stuff. I have to dress up in like a parka or in a toque for Halloween. I can't even go outside. Last thing is just opening up to questions. If there's anybody on who wants to discuss anything bugging them, any issues with the platform, the floor is yours. I'm kind of hoping Boaz chimes in with some issues that he's having.
I like the direction of making it easy to install. Certificate management comes up all the time.
Mm-hmm. And little things like kubedns isn't necessarily as intuitive as we think it is. It's nice when the secured cluster services are on the same part as the central server, but when you're getting into multi-clusters, that DNS and IPs need to be changed, right? So little things like that, little tricks of figuring out information, I think are extremely useful.
It's actually, I think, going to be helpful to solve two different problems. One is to make it easy to install central, but the next is to make it easy to install all kinds of different clusters, because for every different kind of secured cluster, you need a different process. You might need to have gcloud locally, the SDK, in order to secure or access your GKE cluster, and Amazon is different. We have experience internally, thanks to our amazing automated infrastructure tools. That's blog worthy at some point, I guess. If anyone is able to bring that value out to the community and just make it easier to add any secured cluster, people will benefit that both upstream and down the road when they start using our managed services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have little tricks, like I use kubectx. I'm not sure, Matthias, if you know that one. It's it's awesome for switching between clusters, and so little things like getting that installed. Again, maybe if you're in Google or Azure or AWS, little tricks for pulling that information so that you can generate the secured cluster bundle. Very useful, and I mean you can do it all through the API, correct, Boaz? So technically, can't you?
I think the difficulty is the things that are beyond the API control. So the tasks that you need to do as a human, those are the ones that get in the way. So whatever automation we can offer to do that, you'd need to be willing to give up something. So for example, give me your credentials on like a one-off, and I will log in on your behalf, grab those credentials and get everything ready for you, me being a script, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the types of automation capabilities that would just help people move along faster with this.
For sure. Any final parting notes before we head out?
Honestly, keep an eye out for Hacktoberfest. We're always happy to help. I'm super happy to see that people are handing in pull requests, and we're also doing our best to actually review them in time. And the good thing is, even if we don't get to review it in time, as long as you open it up in October, it still counts toward your account. Or towards your Hacktoberfest, I think it's 4 PRs that you can hand in. So please feel free to stop by, and we'll be always there for questions.
Mm-hmm. And I'll probably be spam posting some KubeCon event videos, because I think there's going to be some cool announcements that are happening and cool patterns that I'll see. So if there's anything in particular you want me to go check out, I'll go send some recordings in or something like that. I'll do it sneaky in the background. Cool. Yeah. Thanks everyone again for coming. You can always find us in the Slack chat. I'm Mike Foster, and I'm joined by
Matthias.
And we'll be signing off, and see you next month, same time. Take care, everyone.